Hi, I'm Kath, and along with Stuart and Van Dog Nala, we make up Van Navigation. Some of you may already know, but after Christmas we're going to be heading over to France on the tunnel and then beyond the EU on the other side to go on a big adventure. For months I've been researching how we're going to do this trip along with Nala and take her with us. It has without a doubt been one of the most difficult bureaucratic processes I've ever had to research. So I'm going to share with you today everything I've found out about taking your dog into the EU and beyond, and more importantly, bringing your beloved pet back again. Fingers crossed we've all got it all right. So this video is all about doing the process of traveling with your pet for the first time. If you do it all right the first time, it should be easier for future trips, or at least that's what we're hoping. So first and foremost, how to get your dog from the UK into the EU. So the UK left the pet passport scheme when we went through the Brexit process, and we replaced it with something called the Animal Health Certificate. And if you're taking your dog from the UK into the EU, then you'll need an Animal Health Certificate. Prices on the Animal Health Certificate, and in fact everything I'm going to talk about, vary a lot from vet to vet, so it's really worth shopping around. You can get Animal Health Certificates at various vets in Folkestone for £99 flat fee, and it seems that that's all these vets do all day, is do Animal Health Certificates so that you can get your dog over to the other side. We don't want to leave things to the last minute, so we've gone through our own vet, and the cost of our Animal Health Certificate is £181. They can be up to £300, so make sure you research this before you go. The other thing you'll need before you go over to the EU is a rabies vaccination, and this rabies vaccination will have to be done at least 21 days before you travel. So as long as you've got your rabies vaccination and your Animal Health Certificate, then you can cross into the EU, and you can stay there for up to 4 months and come back on the same Animal Health Certificate. Before you come back, you'll need to see a vet in France and get a worming tablet, and then at that stage you can bring your dog safely back to the UK. Now the problems start if you leave the EU and go on to a third country on the other side. Our plan is to head over into North Africa and explore Morocco, but this same rule applies if you're going into Eastern Europe or Turkey or anywhere else out of the other side of the EU. The moment you cross out of the EU on the other side, your Animal Health Certificate is no longer valid. So if you do not have a pet passport, then you will need to get another health certificate at every border you cross through to show that your dog is certified to travel from border to border. To circumnavigate this process, our plan is to go from the UK into the EU on our Animal Health Certificate, and then once in the EU we are going to get a pet passport, which will allow us to travel on to Morocco and back again without seeing vets at every border. I've spoken to many organisations researching this, and even DEFRA's unofficial advice is to get a pet passport in the EU. Pet passports in the EU can be problematic. Ireland is a really good country to get them, as is Spain. France no longer give out pet passports to anybody unless you can prove a French residential address, which means you have to push on a little further to get your pet passport. So our plan is to push on to Spain, and then once we cross the border into northern Spain, to get a pet passport. And then we need one other thing before we can cross over into Morocco, and this is called rabies titration or rabies serology. And what happens is a vet takes a blood test from your animal and then tests that blood to ensure that the rabies titration level is high enough for that dog to travel into a country that may have rabies, in our case North Africa, Morocco. The problem with rabies serology is that AFA, who's the UK organisation who deal with the import and export of pets, has told me that once titration is done and the bloods are taken, you cannot re-enter the UK for 90 days if you have entered a third country. So if you stay in the EU, it's fine, you can come back into the UK, but if you go beyond the EU, you cannot enter the UK again for 90 days after your blood test was taken. Now, there's been some dispute about this, and some people online and on various forums have argued that it doesn't matter when the rabies titration is done, that you can come back into the UK. And I don't know whether it's maybe just at the border, people don't always get pulled up, but AFA, who are the British organisation who organise the import and export of animals, are absolutely adamant on this, and it is very clear what they've said in their email, that once the blood is taken, you cannot come back into the UK for 90 days. So you really are stuck once you're out there. You have no option of bringing the dog back in. So that's the rule. Now, originally we had hoped that we would get around this rule by getting our rabies serology done in the UK, and then we would carry this certificate with us and we would use that certificate to cross into Morocco. It shouldn't really matter where the bloods are taken. Rabies serology is rabies serology the world over, and we all use EU labs, even us in the UK. However, at the end of October 2023, Spain and their border control, who are called PIF, I'm not sure what that stands for, they've introduced a brand new rule that states that if you want to bring your dog back from Morocco into Spain, then your rabies serology has to be done in the EU. So you have to take your bloods in the EU. So there's no option anymore to get it done in the UK before you travel. And of course, rabies serology takes a while to come back. So normally the test comes back within about 8 to 10 days. But at the moment, because this new rule has just kicked in Spain, some people are reporting delays, and they are reporting that it may take up to 21 days for serology to come back. We are just going to stop off for a blood test, and then we're going to go and explore for a little while, so we don't feel too, kind of held up and like we're not hanging around. And then we'll come back for the blood test, and then the certificate, and then we'll push through to Morocco. So to get to the EU, you need an animal health certificate and a rabies jab, and then you can go over to the EU, and as long as you stay within the EU, you can travel the EU for 90 days on those two things. Another thing to be aware of, although it doesn't affect us, is that you can only take 5 animals to the EU on a travel document at once. So if you have a van full of dogs, so to speak, then this may be a problem for you. 5 is the limit for the animal health certificate. And then once you have that, then when you get into the EU, you must get rabies serology done, and ideally get a pet passport, because otherwise you have to see a vet. You'll need to see a vet in every country. So once you have your rabies serology and your pet passport, then you can push through to southern Spain, or as we're going to do, or the edge of the EU, whichever way you're going out. And then at that point you have to get a temporary import visa. So we will see a vet in southern Spain, and they will give us a visa which will allow Nala to cross into Morocco, and more importantly, back again at the end of our trip. But then because we have the pet passport, we won't then need to see a vet in Morocco. If you don't take up the pet passport offer, you will need to see another vet in Morocco before you can come back into Spain. And then once we push through to France on the way back, you must get a worming tablet administered by a vet in France before you can come back into the UK. It's a lot of steps, but I hope that we've got it all in place now. From a finance point of view, this has probably been the most expensive block of things that we've had to sort out for our trip. So to give you an idea, although obviously these prices will vary depending on where you are, how reasonable your vet is, we paid £88 for our first rabies jab. And then we will pay £181 for the animal health certificate. Now you can get those at Folkestone, but it means leaving it until the last minute. If there are any problems at all, that could hold you up. So just to put that into perspective, we had a problem with our rabies jab in that our vet didn't record the serial number from her chip properly, and we had to go back and have another rabies jab. Obviously if you left this until right at the border at Folkestone, then that might be a problem for you. So just to let you know. And then we're expecting to pay, I think it's €15 for a pet passport, and then we're being told that rabies serology in Spain can cost anything for up to 180 or €200. Then we'll need to see another vet before we cross over into Morocco. Our understanding is that this will be 50 or 60 euros, and then we're on our way back. We'll need to see a vet in France to administer a worming tablet, which we understand will be 30 to 50 euros. So I mean, as you can see, it's not the cheapest process in the world, but if you feel the same way as we do, you won't want to be traveling for months and months without your pet, so you'll want to make sure that you have all this in place. I hope today's video has been helpful to you. Hopefully we've covered everything that you need to know to get your pet to Morocco. You're more than welcome to do your own research. May the odds be ever in your favour, because it's taken months and months to get all this information in place and to find out what we need to do. It's not the easiest thing we've ever done. So EU, fine, no problem at all. Rabies jab, animal health certificate, bosh bang, you're good for 4 months. Go any further than that and yeah, the process becomes very, very complicated. The good thing is, and the reason I mentioned this is that this is for the first time you do this, is that once your rabies serology is in place, once all the system is in place, providing you keep up with your rabies boosters, you will never have to do this again. So just do it once, and then you can just go and travel the world. That's what we're planning anyway. I hope this video has been useful to you. Thanks, see you soon.